Hi, Antoinette. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Desi. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, you are sure welcome, and I know you're going to add so much value to the leaders that are going to be listening today. And it's interesting, I met you 11 years ago because we're both Don Maxwell team members. And all the years that I've known you, listened to you, watched you, I never would have thought that you were an introvert. And so now you're an expert on introverts, and not only introverts, but introverts, extroverts, omniverts, and I didn't say that right again, ambiverts.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. See, I always thought it was just introverts and extroverts, and here we have more. So since you're the expert at that, I want you to explain to people what those four are and what they mean, and then how knowing what you are in one of those categories can help you as a leader.
Yeah, definitely. Understanding yourself, right, in all aspects helps us in our leadership journey. So it really is our natural wiring. A lot of times people think that, it's just a matter of choice and it's, something that's based on external factors. And the thing is, it is our internal wiring. However, there is a spectrum, which a lot of people don't realize. They just want to give these labels. Well, this person's extroverted or this person's introverted, but we all know those people who are super extroverted, at least sometimes more often than not, and those people who are really, really introverted. So the basic definition of each is how do you get your energy? How do you really refuel and get your energy? So for introverts, it really is internal. So think of the introvert is in their head a lot. The introvert is needing quiet. They're needing their recharge alone time. Because they really do relish that solitude and that thinking, that deep thinking. And extroverts, on the other hand, they're out here as far as being outward processors. So they're getting their energy from out in the world. So they love to be around people. They love to speak to think, meaning if you can ask them any kind of question and they're going to have an answer, and it may not be their final answer, but it's going to be an answer. And they're processing, but they're processing externally. So the reason why it is this line as far as this continuum is there's also, like you said, ambiverts, which research has actually shown that most people really are ambiverts, which an ambivert is right there in the middle. They dance the line between little bit extrovert, little bit introvert. And we've all talked to people who say, yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm more introverted and sometimes I feel like I'm more extroverted. And so it could be because that person is just a little bit of both, being an ambivert. However, really, if you are introverted, once an introvert, always an introvert, can it change as far as in extreme, depending on situational factors, depending on where you're at in your life? It can, and the same for extroversion. And then you asked about attroverts. Right? There's not a lot out there on attroverts. However, think of this continuum, and the attrovert swings wildly. In one day, they may be extremely acting extroverted, and the next day they may be extremely introverted. And so they're hopping back and forth. But unlike the ambivert, who's just dancing that middle, the introvert is swinging wildly on both sides. And so, excuse me, that is an omnivert. I got my words mixed up. That's an omnivert. The newest research that has been done lately is attroverts. And an attrovert is a person who is very confident in conversations. They come across like an extrovert. However, an introvert is very independent, so they don't want to be associated with any kind of group. They're very independent, so they will stay away from any kind of group or like social club or groups that get together, and they're known for their specific beliefs and likes and passions. The introvert sees themselves as more independent than that.
Well, I think it's interesting that on your YouTube channel, when you scroll down, you can actually take a test and you can find out what you are. So, first of all, I'll make sure that link is going to be in the show notes, but I did take a test. Now, what do you think I am?
Oh, well, it's hard to tell because you come across as very extroverted, but I could also see where you could be introverted. So maybe are you an ambivert?
I am.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, I thought that was real interesting because I thought it would come out extrovert, but I almost feel like it's good that I'm ambivert because that's seems a little more balanced.
Ambiverts are great because the people who are extroverted feel like they get them, and people who are introverted feel like they get them. So they really do have that balance and a lot in common with the different types. They really do.
So with you being so are you do you consider yourself a real strong introvert? Okay.
Well, there's subtypes of introverts, and I am more of a social introvert. So I am truly introverted, and my husband John would tell everybody, yes, she is definitely introverted. It's just that a lot of times people don't see it out there because I am social. However, like for instance, you and I know each other from the Maxwell conference, and what you don't know, Desi, is periodically I'm having to go up to my room during that conference. During the day, several times a day, I got to go up to my room because I've got to get that recharge time.
Well,
So, yes,
you're flocked by
definitely
you're flocked by a lot of people at that event, so I can definitely see that happening.
it's that high energy, and I can only go for so long, and then I really physically, as with introverts do, physically get exhausted. So it's not just a personality or a mood type thing. It turns into physical, social exhaustion. Yes.
So as a leader, why would it be important to know which one you are?
Well, because each one has strengths. So, for instance, an introverted leadership strengths are they're a really good listener and they're really good one on one. So, really capitalizing on those strengths rather than going, well, I'm not real outspoken. I'm not real front facing. I don't want to be out there having all the attention on me. A lot of times people doubt that they can be a good leader because they question that. So understanding your strengths, but then also understanding your challenges. So,
Mhm.
for instance, like introverted leaders can come across as very intimidating because they're mysterious. There's a mystique around them, and so they're not real talkative. And sometimes they can be really quiet and serious facial expressions. And so their team may feel like they're standoffish or they're not friendly or they're intimidating. And then an extrovert, their strength is the conversation and being outgoing. However, they need to be aware of their blind spots too, which can be perhaps they're too outgoing and they're too talkative and they're too overwhelming for some of the other quieter team members. So I think it's really a matter of understanding who you are and then therefore being able to really lean into your strengths, but also be aware of those blind spots.
It reminds me of DISC. We're both DISC trainers, and the it's so important to know your DISC style so that you have that awareness so that you know how to communicate with people. And it's really kind of the same way with knowing if you're an introvert or an extrovert or an ambivert. Don't wouldn't you say?
Yeah, because you can adapt. So
Yeah.
for instance, if I'm with another introvert, um, we don't have to be filling up silence.
Yeah.
We can both be quiet together and we're both fine with it.
Yeah.
And whereas if I'm with an extrovert, I have to be mindful that they may, once again, question, am I not enjoying their company if I am quiet? So it
Mhm.
doesn't mean I have to give up who I am, but if I'm smart, if I'm socially smart, I want to adapt to the person in front of me and have the kind of match their energy so that it makes them feel comfortable and we have a good connection.
I like that term, socially smart.
I just came up with that.
That's really good. I like what you also said in one of your, video clips from your YouTube channel that one of the benefits of really understanding, um, your style and as an ambivert to make, relationships better and have better influence with people.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, right? Because
Yeah.
when we can connect with people, we are going to increase our influence. And as we know, as John Maxwell says, that is the key
Yes, that's
is influence. Leadership is influence, nothing more,
nothing
nothing
more, nothing
less.
less. That's right,
Yeah.
that's right. Well, I also wanted to point out to everybody so that people will get on your YouTube channel because I was amazed at the number of clips that you had on just little things that make a big impact, such as eye rolling, a wink, um, disagreeing without arguing, the dark side of an introvert. I mean, all those were so really, really good. So, of course, I will make sure your YouTube channel is in the show notes so that people can subscribe to your YouTube channel. But you give so much valuable information that again are just little things that can create a huge lasting impact.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Desi, so much. Yeah, people will ask people, if you could have one superpower, what would it be? And if I could have a superpower, it would be to read people's minds. And so that's why I'm always been interested in body language and facial expressions and eye contact and what does this mean, and of course, we can get so much into it where we're not present with the other person because we're analyzing them, and we don't want to do that. Nor does anybody want somebody analyzing their every little move. But it is interesting to look for patterns, not only in communication styles, but in those nonverbals as well. To be able to try to read, for instance, if I in front of somebody that looks like that they want to end the conversation. They're ready for the conversation to end and go. I want to know what kind of signals they're sending so that I don't just sit there and go on and on when a person is wanting to leave a conversation.
Right. And to have those, I call them invisible antennas
Oh, that's good.
to be really paying attention all the time. And I came up with that term years ago because I worked in a hospital. And one of the things that I did in the hospital, besides working in nursing administration, was I was in charge of the humor department. And
Wow.
I loved it. So, I would so my job actually was to create humor with patients, family, staff, and with the nurses that were, having a really tough day. And one day I was doing a magic trick for staff. It was a bunch of nurses that were standing around me and, they were laughing. And all of a sudden, this guy looks out from his room. I mean, he just kind of goes out like that and looks out. And he did that about 3 times. And I thought, it's time to go entertain him. So
Ah.
well, I marched down there and he stepped out and I said, hello. And so I was about to start doing this magic trick and I introduced myself and I asked him how he was doing. And he said, well, I'm actually right now telling my wife goodbye. I
Oh
know.
my
I
gosh.
know. Probably the biggest lesson in life I ever learned. And that was the day that I needed these little antennas to always be watching, paying attention, and looking for those, as you call them, those signals. And
Wow.
of course, I profusely apologized, and he was so nice, so sweet and kind. And, so, yeah, it was a huge learning lesson, and so in life, you have to always be paying attention to all those little signals in life, so,
Wow, that's an amazing story, Desi. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah.
That's
So
huge.
so as a, expert at leadership yourself, I wanted to ask you, in one word, what does it mean to be an energized leader?
I would say thermostat. You have to be the one to set the temperature rather than feeling like that you're just going to base it on the people around you, which is hard, right? It's hard. It's hard to walk into a room or get on a virtual call or give a presentation or speak to your team when you're not getting much energy back,
Mm.
either because they don't have their cameras on or they're quiet, and just more reserved, or they really are disengaged, or their mind is somewhere else. So to
Mhm.
be the one to be the thermostat and go, okay, I'm not going to read their temperature, but I'm going to set the temperature.
Yeah.
So, I think there's a lot, like I said before, about matching energy, but sometimes you have to be the one to set the energy.
Oh, I love that. Nobody has ever said that before, so I love that. And then what does an energized workplace culture look like to you?
Well, I know that you talk a lot about fun, and I think it does need to be fun because when I think of energized, I think of people who are creative, people who are operating in that team environment versus silos, and that there's a lot of trust there. So I think that there's a lot of companies that need help with their culture of how to get there. But once they are able to get there, which it takes time, but they are, I think an energized culture, your energized company, you're going to get so much further, not only in production, but in employee satisfaction as well.
Humor, fun, and laughter are just so vitally important in the workplace. Now, I'm kind of curious. You're in Florida, so on the completely opposite side of the United States is Seattle, Washington. Have you ever been to Pike's Place Fish Market?
Well, actually, I'm in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So,
Yeah, that's right.
yes,
Yeah, that's right.
yes. But
Yeah.
yes, I have, because my husband and I, John, my husband and I, were told to go there. So, yes, we did see the throwing fish. Yes.
A- and of course I went and had to spend buy a boatload of fish to catch a fish, but but I mean, it was fun. I loved catching the fish, and it didn't matter how much it cost. I wanted to have fun that day,
Wow,
and
that's good.
and
Yeah.
the story behind them is that they almost went bankrupt, and then after the guy who was, who owned the company at that time decided that this was gonna be a world famous fish market. I mean, who would have ever thought of a world famous fish market? And it was all rooted in fun.
Wow. So that's what brought them out of bankruptcy?
Yep. Mhm.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, they
Very
decided
cool.
they were gonna have fun, and they were gonna make sure that the people that came to them was gonna have fun too. So yeah, that's a great way to energize a workplace, and productivity will go up because again, people wanna have not only do they wanna have fun, but whenever you laugh, and this I guess I'm falling into my science of laughter is your blood vessels open up, which sends oxygen to your brain that makes you think better. So there's more to it than just laughing. It's going to increase productivity because you're going to be more creative and think better. So, all right, let's get back on track here. Um, oh, how do you think, or what do you think is the best way for a leader to energize their team when they're going through a tough time?
Think being real, instilling hope and clarity, but also being real rather than, things are going to get better, we're all in this together. But actually being vulnerable in a way that's not going to make your team feel worse, but
Uh-huh.
in a way that will make your team go, "Oh, okay, you're really human as well,
Right.
just like we are." So I think it's fine to talk about some of your difficulties and some of your challenges and some of your uncertainties, but to keep pointing to the things that you do know and the future that you do see and painting that vision. I
Uh-huh.
think is so important, and Mark Cole did that when he took over the Maxwell enterprise. You may
Uh-huh.
remember that, Desi. He was
Oh,
very
yeah.
vocal with saying, "I haven't done this before. I have not led an enterprise like this before. I'm figuring this out."
Uh-huh.
And we didn't think less of him. We thought more of him because he
Mhm.
was just being real.
He was being authentic, and I think
Yeah.
when people see that, they're gonna think, like you just said, they're just like me, they're human. I mean, and then that's when they're gonna be behind them cheerleading,
Yes,
cheering 'em on.
right.
"Yeah, you can do this, you can do this." So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, love that answer. If you could give every leader in the world one piece of advice to keep their spark alive, what would it be?
Say, I really like what my husband John says. He says, take things seriously, but don't take yourself seriously, meaning you're going to mess up and don't beat yourself up when you do. Thank goodness, every day is a do-over and we get that do-over every day to be able to be better. I mean, there's still almost every day that I'm going, okay, I had an evaluated experience here, but there's tomorrow, and I'm not gonna make the same mistake tomorrow.
Well, what
I
did
think
John
that's
teach us about learning from our failures?
yeah, yeah. We don't learn from experience, we learn from evaluated experience, and I am
Mhm.
so glad that we do get to do that.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. So I think it's just continuing to learn and get better and not take everything so seriously, which is a challenge for me. I still am challenged with that.
I think everybody struggles with that. I don't think you're the only one. All right, so we're gonna end with a fun question. Is there a favorite movie, book, or gadget that you've seen or purchased in the last month or 2?
Yes. So, I was flying on Delta and decided was flipping through movies. And I'd seen it before. It was a Neil Diamond movie. It was Song Sung Blue.
I saw that.
And you saw it.
I did.
And did you like it?
I loved it.
Me too. And I'm not a Neil Diamond fan, so I thought, well, I don't really want to watch this. But then I thought, well, sometimes documentaries are good. Well, it's not a documentary, as you
Uh-uh,
know. It's
uh-uh.
Hugh Jackman and Kate Hudson, and it's a true story. But as you know, he is a Neil Diamond kind of like an impersonator,
Yeah.
but it is a true story, and they get married and it's their life and their journey together. And I just thought that movie was so great that I got home and John and I watched it immediately again at home because I kept talking about it. So I'm glad you saw it too, and I'm glad you loved it. I laughed and cried. I just thought it was so good, and again, so real and so believable.
And
Yeah,
that when the Oscars came, I was hoping Kate Hudson would have gotten that Oscar for that.
she was good.
She was extraordinary in that. So, yeah, she didn't get it, but it was like, "I was rooting for you," because yeah, it was really an extraordinary movie, and when I watched it, I didn't know it was a true story. So at the end,
Oh.
when it came up, with the real pictures and everything, I was like my jaw
Oh
just
my gosh, yeah, I
yeah,
bet you appreciated it just that much more
I
once you
did.
realized that.
I
Yeah,
did, so
yeah.
alright, well, you have been an amazing guest. Thank you so
Uh,
much for being on my podcast.
Thank you, Desi. I love your podcast. You do such a great job. You keep the energy up. You're the thermostat.
Good. That's the plan. Alright, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Alright, bye-bye.